In many ways, this whole immigration process from Mecca to Medina very much parallels what's happened in my own city here in Dearborn, in our own backyard. And I see it play out in the hospital where I work.
بيتكلم عربي فما مشكلة أبدا بس ولكن إذا تحتاجين أي كان شيء هو بيتصل فيي وأنا برجع بتصل فيكم.
Najah Bazi is a nurse at Dearborn's Oakwood Hospital. She conducts training sessions to help bridge the gap of understanding between the hospital staff and their Muslim patients, many of whom are immigrants.
I know you're all nurses, and I know that you're in this profession just as I am to serve, to do a good job. But it's real easy for us to get caught up in our own baggage. We're all human, and we all have a certain set of preconceived notions, just as you walked through the door and you saw me for the first time, just as you might have seen Alia. In the sensitivity training, inevitably, they know very little about the faith of Islam. They think that the faith of Islam is a very, maybe, terroristic, militant, barbaric, spread by the sword faith. And so when they have a Muslim up there talking about patient rights, dignity, issues around health and illness, all of a sudden you see all of these stereotypes that people have as part of, the baggage as we grow up, just kind of fall. When you transcend culture, you arrive at a universal place where our humanness is all the same. You grieve the same. We all cry when someone we love dies. When we deliver, those of us who can deliver, we all experience labor. Something happened in Dearborn that further established a need for this kind of work, and that was a huge immigration process as a result of the Gulf War.
As a critical care nurse, Najah Bazi often has to counsel patients with terminal illnesses, like this Iraqi immigrant who has just been diagnosed with uterine cancer.
I said to her, "What do you think you have?" And she said, "I have an infection in the uterus," and they took it out. Maybe she's not hearing it the first time. Maybe she doesn't need to hear it. Maybe she can't hear it. Maybe they're just not saying the C word at all. And they're not using that word with her. And they want to just maintain hope. And we're just going to treat it delicately. Okay? Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. Assalamu alaikum. These are families immigrating from a way of life, and mostly because they've been torn by war. And so they get here, and the helpers are here. And it's quite obligatory to be that helper.
When Muhammad arrived in Medina, he made it clear that helping immigrants would be one of the cornerstones of the new Islamic society.
This is his message. Spread peace, feed people food, and do some devotional practice, and you'll enter paradise without any trouble. 2/3 of that message is about other people. The secret of Medina is it's a place where human beings are going to attempt to live up to the ideal of the Islamic tradition.
Part of the arrangement was that the people of Medina agreed that they would provide housing and support for the immigrants as they came in. And very often they were even paired, so that certain people had direct responsibility for specific people from Mecca.
And that did not take place in 24 hours. It came step by step, and within a few months, you now had two groups. The helpers, so-called Al-Ansar, that is those Medinan Arabs who had become Muslims, and the Meccans who had become Muslims before them. And in this way, for the first time, you created the Islamic Ummah, that is the Islamic people, that bond which transcends all other bonds.
He said to these people, these are now your neighbors, these are your brothers and sisters. He establishes that sense of humanity, that ummah. We are all connected to one another. We are all responsible for one another. A couple of you guys to carry to my car. Okay? There's a mosque in the heart of Detroit, and it's run by an imam who started a soup kitchen. I want the kids to be able to see But that's part of Muhammad's message.
This is the exit right here, so.
Oh, hang on, everybody. It's a sharp turn. Hang on.
Actually, it's like not a good driver.
Listen, I'm a good driver.
This is the first test. If you can't pass this test, the rest of it's off.
All right, man. The majority of the ones that come for the soup kitchen are non-Muslim. It's only maybe 1 or 2 people that are Muslim that come for the soup kitchen. And we let them know that it's a part of who we are as to why we're doing this. It's a part of what God has commanded for the Muslims, for the human being to be charitable.
But I'm studying to be ordained as a Catholic deacon. So I had run into Abdullah when he made a presentation about Islam. And, I was really attracted to the works of this mosque. I was never aware that there was an active part of Muslim faith life that really reached out to the poor. I wasn't even sure that it was part of your creed. Abdullah went through misunderstandings that would commonly exist. He started with the term black Muslim. What does that bring to mind? And, you know, honestly, it brought to mind certain things that would make you fearful. Certain kinds of maybe aggressive behavior, nationalistic kinds of thinking, as if we're going to carve ourselves off from the others and have no fellowship. He said, if I tell you what the stereotypes are that I have of Catholics, when you listen to them, you'll say, oh, those are extreme examples. Those are not what we are about.
Dearborn is the place where the early immigrants of Arab, Lebanese, and Middle Eastern people came and settled down. This country embraced them and opened its door for them. Yet they needed time to adjust and go through that difficulty they faced when they came to this country. It's 2 different societies, 2 different cultures.
Najah and Ali Bazi are raising their family in the suburbs of Dearborn. Their children are 3rd-generation American Muslims.
We're trying to combine the best of both worlds and give our kids the family values that our parents teach, and realize that they live in land in the United States which has many opportunities for our kids to prosper in.
You still can't beat me.
Okay, I'll beat you tonight.
Can you?
Can you shoot 5 and 0 from
I
the
can
same
shoot 5 and 0 from anywhere.
5 and 0 anywhere.
Anywhere.
Anywhere? Right now?
Right now, let's go.
Like many Dearborn families, the Bazis struggle daily to balance the sometimes conflicting demands of their faith and modern American society. Their daughter, Nadia, has decided to wear the hijab, or head covering, that was first worn by Muhammad's wives. Many Muslim women still wear the hijab as a sign of modesty and piety.
And we're going to back you one way or the other. That's a given. Our daughter came to us and said, I've made a decision. And she's 16 now.
30 at night.
And she said, I've decided that I want to wear hijab.
I have no problem with him. The last time when you put it on, right?
You made me take it off.
No, I didn't make you take it off. I sort of persuade you, thinking, trying to bring out the other end of the light of it, right? And you resented me from that, correct?
Big time.
All right? I just thought maybe if you go through high school and then put it on after high school, Dad, then if then at least at that point in life, you'll be able to see what you want to do in life. And that, because you understand something, you never know where you're going to be and where you're going to go in life. I mean, it's sure this hijab is accepted in our community here, and you may do well. You end up being a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, you'll be doing very well for yourself. Look what just happened to you when you went down to Tennessee. I mean, you had driving a bus, and the state police trooper wants to stop over because a whole bus full of people because they see hijabs.
I think for Nadia, he probably feels much like I feel. There's great reverence for it, and then there's that oh my gosh, I want to protect my daughter from the world. I don't want people to think she's a terrorist. I don't want people to think she's oppressed. I don't want people to think I'm her father, I made her put that on her head. All of those kinds of things come into play. I don't think Baba is, trying to hurt you here. He's trying to show you a picture of the real world. And what you need to do is show him a real picture of your world. He's a father. He has some legitimate concerns.
So my point is that you're still the same Nadia.
Ali, maybe she's not done talking to you.
No.
If you've talked to her, give her a few minutes and then let her talk to you.
Do you know that I'm doing this for myself and for you?
Well, you remember something. You're not doing it for me and me. You're doing it for yourself and God. All right? You're the one who has to answer to God.
So do you.
I will answer to God. Don't worry about it then. I have my positives and my negatives in life, and I will answer to God. Don't worry about it.
But all that I do is a reflection of you.
You're in good shape, man. You're in good shape, all right?
So, are we at peace?
I never knew we were at war.
He wasn't exactly thrilled when I wore a hijab either.
You said to say it.
No, you weren't. I mean, neither was my mom and dad. I took it off after 2 weeks. I mean, it's natural, but you got to know what you want to do. If you want to do it, you're strong enough to do it. That's the end of it. There's going to be days where you probably are going to want to take it off. You know, some days are stressful, but I think you're strong.
Muhammad tells you that, you should always give what's best for your daughter. And me as a father, I'm just trying to give my daughter the opportunity to be able to see life from a wider angle and a bigger perspective. All right?
People would immigrate into different parts of the country, but what was interesting is that they would all manage to find their way into Dearborn, a great many of them. And the reason for that is because the mosques were in place.
Dearborn's newest mosque will be the largest in North America. Like the first mosque in Medina, it is being built with help from the entire community.
There's great feelings of ownership to the mosque when the community builds it. People are baking food. Every year they contribute between $50,000 to $100,000 to the income and the operating costs of our mosques. So we have the building of this mosque, kind of metaphorically, and the laying of the bricks, and this new foundation with all these new immigrants in Dearborn. And everybody brings their contribution.
Prophet Muhammad established the first center in Medina for Muslims, and that was his mosque. And it was not only a place where Muslims go and do their prayer or offer their supplication. It was the center for the entire community. It was the headquarters of the Prophet. He would become a judge and solve problems among people inside the mosque. So he receives delegations. He would declare war or peace. The mosque was serving multiple purposes in the life of Prophet Muhammad.
It was at the mosque that Muhammad discussed a sweeping change in policy with his followers. After years of exercising restraint in the face of persecution by the Meccans, Muhammad received a clear new revelation that marked a dramatic departure from the past. It gave the Muslims limited permission to take up arms in self-defense. The statesman was about to become a general.
For 13 years, there's been no sanction to fight. Then a revelation comes that says, those who have been removed unjustly from their homes and have been fought because of their religious beliefs are sanctioned to fight, to defend themselves.
Killing is always abhorrent. The Quran makes it very clear about that, and the Quran says that it's always wrong to start a war, to be an aggressor. But persecution is worse than killing. When people have been driven from their homes or deprived of their basic human rights, or when an evil ideology comes into the world, sometimes, regrettably, it may be necessary to fight, and sometimes lives will be lost.
Muhammad's first large military engagement occurred near the town of Badr, when 313 Muslims set out to surprise a caravan from Muhammad's own tribe, the Quraysh.
In a sense, the Battle of Badr, which became such a landmark in Muslim history, was a sort of mistake. The Muslims had planned a conventional raid, but the Meccans, when they heard that this band of renegades was attacking their great caravan, were so enraged they sent out the whole army against them. And the Muslims were convinced that they were going to die.
He never wanted to fight the Meccans. I mean, the Meccans are his people, his friends, his family. He wants to co-opt them. He wants to make them the key, if you will, to the new Islamic Ummah that he's trying to form. So he doesn't want to go to war with them.
As he prepared to lead the Muslims into battle, Muhammad took the unprecedented step of establishing clear rules of engagement for his army.
He makes it very clear to his soldiers that if they have the right to use force against the Qurayshis, that does not mean that they will do the same thing that has been done in pre-Islamic wars, in which women and children could be killed, in which no prisoners could be taken, no quarter given. No, no. He said Islam is a religion of law.
The Meccans had sent an army of about 1,000 men. As the army approached, Muhammad prepared to make a stand near a well. One of his soldiers suddenly questioned his strategy. "Has God revealed it to you," he asked, "or is it your own opinion?" When Muhammad answered that he was speaking as a man, not a prophet, the soldier suggested that they stop at a larger well closer to the enemy so they could deprive them of water. Muhammad agreed at once. The change in strategy proved decisive, and the Muslims reported a resounding triumph.
It was a victory that stunned the Muslims. It seemed like a complete reversal, like a miracle, almost a sort of revelation of God in history. A furqan, they called it, something that separated the just from the unjust.
After the battle, Muhammad received a revelation claiming the victory for God. The Muslims felt that angels had been fighting alongside them. The victory reaffirmed their belief that God was on their side and raised Muhammad's status higher still. But his followers also knew that the Meccans would seek violent retribution. A year later, an army of 3,000 Meccans returned to face 1,000 Muslims in the Battle of Uhud. The resulting rout left the future of Islam in mortal peril.
It was a horrible battle, and the corpses of the Muslims were mutilated by the Meccans, and the Meccan women, as was their wont, came out onto the battlefield and danced around the corpses.
Many of Muhammad's soldiers lost their lives in the battle, including a rabbi who had honored the Medina Pact by fighting alongside Muhammad. The families of the fallen Muslims were now without protectors. Then, Muhammad received a new revelation, allowing Muslim men to safeguard these women and children by taking as many as 4 wives, but only if they could treat them equally.
That in itself, in the context of Arabia, was a bit of a restriction, because a man could have unlimited number of wives. The context of the permission to polygamy is to say who is going to look after these women. And it was an act of faith, not an act of lust, that inspired men to take more wives. So it would be wrong to think of the Prophet as basking decadently in a garden of sensual delights with his harem. His harem was very much a matter of state, and sometimes his wives were rather a mixed blessing.
Although Muhammad was monogamous during Khadija's life, after her death, he eventually married a number of women, including one of the Uhud widows, Salama.
The reason for his marriages were really political alliances. It was a tribal society, and for Muhammad to marry into another tribe and to take a wife just meant that there was a bond being created with this tribe.
Among Muhammad's wives were the daughters